All right, so before we rock and roll into our very exciting course material, I want to give you a brief overview of the course so that you have a clear understanding of what it's about and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So the series of short videos you're going to watch are going to tackle different aspects of the course, how you're graded, what kinds of work you're going to do, and so forth. But what I want to do here is I want to try to give you a sense of what the subject is that we're going to explore together. Try to answer the question, what is Philosophy 12 all about? Now, not surprisingly, I'm sure I'm going to answer this question by saying, well, it's about logic. Philosophy 12 is about logic all day long. And I would hope that when I say that, there's a question in your mind. And the question is, well, what exactly does he mean by logic? What is this thing he's talking about exactly? And importantly, why is it a thing that I should spend moments of my life studying? Right? This is a question you should probably be asking all of your professors. Why is the thing you're asking me to learn worthwhile to me? What am I going to be able to do with it? How is it going to be useful to me? What's the value of it to me? Now, I'm going to answer this question for our course, at least initially in kind of a weird way, by sharing with you that every day of the week I go to HealthSport in Arcata. And without fail, there are always lots of student athletes from both Humboldt and CR there. And they're on the Stairmaster, they're lifting weights, they're running on the treadmill and whatnot. And it seems like a reasonable question to ask is, why are they doing these things? Why would a basketball player spend time on a Stairmaster? There's no stairs on a basketball court. So no matter how good that basketball player gets at doing the Stairmaster, they're never going to have those skills translate directly to the basketball court. Same thing with the softball player who's in there curling dumbbells. Why? Dumbbell curling is not a part of playing softball. So why are they engaged in these other kinds of training when they could be using this time to do things that are directly related to the sport? They could be shooting hoops or they're going to the batting cages. But instead, they're choosing to do these things that don't seem to be directly applicable to what's required of them in their sport. And of course, I know you know the answer to this, right? The answer is, well, they're trying to maximize the conditioning of their body so that it performs the tasks required in the sport as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So yes, the softball player is never going to be curling dumbbells on the softball field, but curling those dumbbells may result in a much more powerful swing of the bat. And same thing with the basketball player on the Stairmaster. Yeah, no stairs on the basketball court, but a really rockin' cardiovascular system is going to be super useful when running that court. And I think about logic in kind of an analogous way. I think that studying logic is to our minds, our brains, what training in the gym is for athletes. Okay, and I think that logic is. Studying and practicing logic is going to help us better make sense of the world around us. All right, so I'm going to use this phrase making sense quite a bit. If you know who this is on the screen, you are definitely way younger than I am. And if you don't know who it is, you're just going to have to live with the mystery. Although the person's name is on the screen right in front of you. So, making sense of things. We think in claims. And what I mean by that is this, is that when we are thinking about our lives and what we're doing and the world outside of ourselves, we think in statements. And these statements are about the world, right? So I say something like, there's a cat outside my door right now, or I have an appointment at 8 a.m. At the college. Okay, and these are statements about my life and about the world that I live in. And these statements, these claims, they're either true or false. Okay, I might not know whether it's true or false. Like you don't know, I make the statement, there's a cat outside my door right now, and you don't know if that statement's true or false. You just know that it has to be one or the other. It can't be both true and false, that there's a cat outside my door. And sometimes, whether or not a statement is true or false is really important to know. So if I make the statement, the house next door to you is on fire right now, whether or not that statement is true or false is pretty important, or it could be pretty important. And whether or not that statement is going to be true or false is going to depend on our evaluation of the evidence. And we're going to evaluate that evidence. We're going to evaluate the information that's in support of some claim that's being made by applying logic to it. And what I mean by logic are the rules of thinking. Okay, now people bristle at this sometimes because I tell them there are correct ways of thinking and there are incorrect ways of thinking. And that's not the same thing as saying some of your beliefs are good and some of your beliefs are bad, according to me. What I'm saying to you is that there are actually rules that we're going to study that govern the way that ideas are arranged and put together that makes those ideas more or less reliable. So the more we practice logic, the better we're going to get at assessing information and evidence that's in front of us that's being offered in support of claims that are being made about the world. Now, making sense. An important concept. What exactly does that mean? Well, take a look at these words here. Okay, so read those words. And you tell me, does that make sense? And you're probably thinking to yourself, not really. I mean, I know what each one of the words mean, but I don't know what this sentence is saying. It seems like gobbledygook. Now, what if we take those same words, the exact same words, and just put them in a different order? Does that sentence make sense? And you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, that sentence makes sense. Well, what exactly do you mean when you say that it makes sense? And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what I mean is when I read those words, I can understand what the claim is that's being made about the world. Now, here's what's interesting. One of the things that's interesting. It's the same words. So there must be something going on in the second sentence that causes it to have meaning that makes sense that's not occurring in the first sense. And it has to be something that's not in the words themselves because the words are the same, right? So what exactly does the second group of words possess that the first group of words doesn't? And the answer, is going to be grammatical structure, what we would call syntax. There's something going on in that sentence that makes meaning that is greater than the sum of the words themselves. And what I mean by that is this, is you understand what the word only means, you understand what the word students mean, you understand what the word in means, and so on and so forth. But when we put these words in this particular order, there's something that we can't see on the screen that causes these words to result in a meaning about the world that's greater than the individual words themselves. There's some underlying structure to that second sentence that causes it to have a meaning that the first sentence doesn't. And that's what we're talking about when we say that something makes sense. We say that this claim that's being made adheres to the rules that it needs to adhere to in order for it to have meaning and be sensible. All right? So next up, we're going to look specifically at how a similar kind of principle works with regards to groups of statements. And this is when we're going to start to understand a little bit more about our subject and logic and how exactly it works.